What kind of car did your dad have in the 1970s? Was it a family car, a sporty two-seater, or maybe even the first time you drove a luxury 4x4? There were a lot of cars in the 1970s that were typical of British driving. From the Jensen Healey to the Mini to the Ford Cortina, which was the best automobile of the time. These are 15 legendary cars that every British dad drove in the 1970s when the Jensen Healey came out in 1972. It was marketed as a modern British sports vehicle that was both affordable and fun to drive. Jensen Motors and Donald Healey worked together to build it. It promised to look good and perform well. Powered by a Lotus-designed engine, it soon drew attention for being something innovative in a market that was often populated with outdated designs. The Jensen Healey was a fun car for parents who wanted something more exciting than the family saloon but didn't want to spend a lot of money on a Jaguar or Aston Martin. The automobile barely made it to 1976. Yet it became a part of British car culture in the 1970s. It was a frequent sight among younger dads, but they still had a little bit of their adventurous side. Compared to the boxy cars of the day, it was light, swift, and easy to see in traffic. Even if people were worried about how reliable it was appealing since it stood for freedom. The Triumph TR7 came to Britain in 1974 and was unlike any other car on the road at the time. Its sharp wedge shape was very different from the rounder sports vehicles of the 1960s. It was marketed as the shape of things to come, and it got people's attention right away. Many dads who liked earlier Triumph TR vehicles thought the TR7 was a brave new step forward. It featured a modern look but still kept the sporty mentality. It had a 2.0L engine and was designed to be a useful sports car that could be used in everyday life. A lot of people liked the TR7 in the 1970s, even though reviewers often disagreed with its design. It was the kind of car that made a statement. Buying it showed that the owner was forward-thinking and not scared to be different. For dads, it was a treat and a way to get away from their daily lives. The TR7 is still an icon of bold 1970s design, even if it was hard to make. British dads who wanted something fancy but still family-friendly in 1970 looked to the Triumph Stag. This Grand Tourer had a V8 engine, a sleek convertible body, and a personality that set it apart from other saloons. It was made for middle-class professionals who wanted their automobiles to be fast and stylish at the same time. The Stag's design was eye-catching, and it gave off an air of success that made the driver appear good without being too flashy. The Stag was also useful because it had 4 seats, which meant it could be used as a family car while still giving dad a thrill behind the wheel. But it did have problems with reliability, especially with its engine. Even still, a lot of people appreciated the car for what it stood for, a taste of luxury and relaxation. In the 1970s, it became a well-known component of Britain's driving scene. It was sporty but also practical, and it had a unique style. By the end of the 1960s, the Rover P6 was already receiving honors. It was popular with professional dads who wanted something classy throughout the 1970s. The 20 million 2200 and V8-powered 3500 models were available. They offered executive comfort without going into Jaguar's higher pricing bracket. It had advanced engineering for its day, with safety measures and a suspension system that made it ride smoothly and confidently. The P6 was an upgrade for many families, from smaller saloons to a car that seemed more high-end. Production continued until 1977, which meant that it stayed a common sight on British roads for most of the decade. It was parked in the driveways of managers, doctors, and other professionals who wanted to show off their status and dependability. The P6 combined practicality with prestige, a balance that appealed to dads seeking both. People still think of it as one of Rover's best works. People loved the Austin Maxi for its high quality and classic style. It was a useful family car from 1969 to the end of the 1970s. The 5-door hatchback design was what set it apart from other cars at the time. It was a car made for families that were becoming bigger and needed more space without spending too much money. It had a lot of trunk space and seats that could be moved around. Dads who cared about practicality generally chose the Maxi because it could do everything from taking the kids to school to going on vacation with the whole family. The Maxi's front-wheel drive arrangement was the same as that of smaller British Leyland automobiles. It was useful, had a lot of space, and was made to make costs reasonable for regular families. The Maxi never became as popular as the Mini, but it did get a reputation as a workhorse. It might not have been fashionable, but in the 1970s, it was a clever, useful car for dads who valued space and value above all else. When Ford released the Granada in the early 1970s, it was their answer to the growing demand for executive saloons. It was bigger and nicer than the Cortina, and dads who wanted to show off their success rapidly chose it as their car. The Granada boasted powerful engines, easy driving, and a cabin that was comfortable and felt modern for its day. It offered space and style that older families liked when they wanted to move up from the mid-range market, whether it was a saloon or an estate. In Britain, it became common among professionals who wanted to be seen on the road and corporate car drivers. The police also employed the Granada, which made it more well-known and important. Having one was a sign that dads in their 40s and 50s had really made it. The Granada wasn't as sporty as the Capri, but it stood for power, comfort, and dependability in the 1970s. The Ford Capri was one of the automobiles that British dads loved the most. This beautiful coupe with long lines and a sporty look was marketed as the automobile you always promised yourself. It stood out from the family saloon throng. It came out in 1969 and quickly became a symbol of cool driving for the next 10 years, blending style with low cost. For a lot of dads, driving a Capri wasn't so much about how useful it was as it was about how young it made them feel. There was a Capri for almost every budget. With engine options from small 4-cylinders to big V6 South, it was credible since it was in motorsports. And its appearances on TV shows like The Professionals made it even more appealing. It appeared quick even when it was parked on the street, which made it popular. The Capri was more than simply a car for parents in the 1970s. It was a way to show off who you are and have fun. People were really excited about the Hillman Avenger, which came out in 1970 and was later known as the Chrysler and then the Tolbert Avenger. It was meant to be a simple family automobile that fit between small cars and bigger executive cars. It was a great choice for working dads who required reliable everyday transportation because it had a neat design, low running expenses, and a useful cabin. The Avenger soon became a popular automobile in the UK in the 1970s because it was reliable and easy to own. The Avenger was well liked in motorsports, notably rallying, which helped its image. That sports credentials gave dads behind the wheel a little additional pride. It wasn't fancy, but it was cheap and useful, so thousands of families used it. By the middle of the 1970s, the Avenger was ubiquitous, showing that it was one of the best and most sensible choices for British dads. The Austin Allegro was released by British Leyland in 1973 to replace the 1100 and 1300 models, which were very popular. It was meant to bring family driving into the 21st century with its rounded shape, roomy cabin, and cutting-edge technology. People have often said bad things about the Allegro since then, but at the time it sold well and many dads picked it as their main family car. It promised comfort, low prices, and a fresh view of how useful things could be in the 1970s. The Allegro was a common sight in driveways and school parking lots for many families. It wasn't as flashy as a Capri or as prestigious as a Granada, but it was cheap and easy to get when families needed it. Even though there were jokes about how unreliable the Allegro was, it was an attempt to make British cars more modern for common people. It checked all the boxes for dads who cared more about price and ease than style. The Morris Marina was the no-nonsense family automobile that British Leyland required by 1971. It was made fast so that it could compete with Ford's Cortina and Vauxhall's Viva because of this. The Marina was basic, clear, and easy to make. This meant that dads could buy an automobile that was cheap and easy to take care of. It wasn't trying to be fancy, but it did what a family needed to do every day. In the 1970s, the Marina was one of the most frequent automobiles on British roads. The mechanics know how to fix it. The parts were affordable, and it was useful enough for school runs, commutes, and vacations. Fans may have conflicting thoughts about it now, but for many families, it was just the automobile that got them through the decade. In the 1970s, the Marina was a safe bet for dads who weren't sure about the economy. The Triumph Dumite came out in 1972 and rapidly became known as one of the decade's more beautiful small saloons. It was small but elegant, which set it apart from the other cars in the Planner family at the time. Dads who chose the Dolomite liked that it was both practical and athletic. It could handle both daily commutes and weekend drives. The Dumite Sprint stood out in particular because it was fast and had excellent engineering. It was a logical choice for dads who wanted something cheap yet still a little fun. Driving it made you feel proud because it was fast and stylish at the same time. Other cars were just useful, but the Dolomite represented ambition and style, which made it a good choice for dads in the 1970s. By the 1970s, the Mini was already a cultural symbol. Dads who drove one frequently wanted a car that was both efficient and charming. It was small on the outside, but had a lot of room on the inside, making it excellent for busy city life and narrow suburban streets. Many families found it to be the perfect second car because it was cheap to run and reliable. The Mini was not only useful, but it also had a lot of personality. It was known for being sporty because of its ties to motorsport, especially rallying success in the 1960s. Dads could still brag about it in the 1970s. The Mini was more than just a car. It was a part of the family's way of life. It was cheap, sleek, and easy to see. For many dads, it was a sign of freedom that didn't come with huge prices. It is still one of the most well-liked cars from the time. The Vauxhall Viva was one of the most popular small saloons in Britain when the 1970s began. The fact that it was cheap and easy to use made it very appealing to working dads who needed something trustworthy for both family errands and getting to work. The Viva came in a range of variants, from simple trims to more fashionable ones, so it could fit a wide range of tastes and budgets. Because it was so popular, there was at least one Viva parked on the curb on practically every street in Britain. Easy to fix, cheap to keep up, and easy to drive. It was the most useful choice. Dads in the 1970s bought the Viva because it was reliable, even though it wasn't as flashy as other automobiles. It wasn't about getting people's attention. It was about having a car that could handle the needs of daily family life. Ford wanted the Escort to be the new family favorite when it came out in 1968. By the 1970s, it had taken Britain by storm and was swiftly becoming one of the most famous automobiles on the road. The Escort was a great choice for both single dads looking for fun and families who needed something practical. It was small, reliable, and came in a variety of body designs. Its success in rallying also made it look better, giving it a sporty image that many competitors didn't have. This meant that fathers could have a family automobile that was still a little bit exciting. The Escort was quite popular, and many British families chose it as their car. Cheap, long-lasting, and stylish enough to be proud of. The Escort set a standard that kept dads coming back for years. The Ford Cortina, the best dad vehicle of the 1970s, comes in first. By the middle of the decade, it was the best-selling car in Britain, easily beating out the competition and making its mark on automotive history. The Cortina was more than simply an automobile. It was a statement that was useful for the daily commute, dependable for extended journeys, and stylish enough to look good parked in the driveway. Comes in a lot of different trims. There was a Cortina for practically every kind of dad, no matter how much money he had or how he lived. There were simple models and fancy executive models. Dads all throughout the country chose it because it was affordable, comfortable, and well-designed, and it became a common sight on every road. For a lot of families, it was the automobile that took the kids to school, the beach, or on weekend trips. In the 1970s, owning a Cortina was a sign of stability, ambition, and success. The Cortina was the best car for British dads in the 1970s. No other car came close. That brings us to the end of our tour of the automobiles that every British dad appeared to drive in the 1970s. If any of these antique cars made you think of family road vacations or your dad's pride, enjoy parked in the driveway. Then like the video and subscribe for more excursions down memory lane. I'll see you next time.